Hey guys, and welcome to a battle featuring the Griff the Marrow Meister up against Mini Boris as the Tomb Kings come face to face with the High Elf Nemesis. Should be a pretty fun game all round. This matchup is relatively even and balanced in my opinion, as both factions can bring pretty good utility tools to deal with one another. So let's hop in here and have a quick look at the builds. So for the forces of the Tomb Kings here, we do have Arkan the Black on his mighty steed, of course coming in with Spirit Leech and Fate of Beyuna it looks like. Let's just double check that quickly. It is indeed, as well as the Liber Mortis, Staff of Nagash, as well as the Tomb Blade of Arkan. Hiding very sneakily behind a tree here, we do have a Leech Priest as well, coming in, of course, with the mighty Net of Amantok. For the main battle line, it looks like we have Skeleton Warriors dotted all the way along in quite a nice defensive formation here. Going to be coming around and trying to protect the Casket of Souls, which is one of the fantastic counters to the archers that the High Elves can bring. Basically works as a more accurate mortar and can do some really decent damage overall. In the centre pocket, we do also have Necropolis Knights, who are the sneakiest of all snakes, do some pretty decent damage, as well as the Eyes of the Desert with their very deadly anti-large. These guys can tear apart a dragon if you don't spot them in time, and of course they have Stalk, so they're pretty hard to spot overall. We have a Bone Giant as well to add on a little bit more pressure onto the opponent. Now, there's multiple ways that the High Elves can face this, and it looks like we have a bit of a rush faction here today, or rush force. You can try and outshoot the opponent with Eel Claw bolt throws, but instead, it looks like Mini Boris has gone for Rangers, dotted all the way along the front line. Dual wielding sword infantry, fantastic at clearing out chaff. And in the secondary line, we have an absolute bucket load of archers who can do really decent, consistent fire, help they take down and clear out chaff, as well as doing pretty decent damage to large targets over the course of a whole battle. In the backup line, we do have the much more elite Phoenix Guard, no doubt going to be one of the targets for the Casket of Souls. Again, very elite, decent anti-large, can take down some of the larger threats. And then we have some Spearmen as well, backing up the archers. We have a small cav contingent as well, coming in with double silver helms on the left flank and one unit in the centre pocket. And for a lord, we actually have a prince up on top of a star dragon, a lord you don't get to see terribly often, which is pretty awesome to see here. So we have Stand Your Ground, the Bane Shield, which increases armour by 30 and plus 24 missile parry. And of course, the star dragon comes in with its traditional breath attacks. Pretty awesome build. Looks like we also have a Mage of Life coming with Earthblood and Regrowth, as the early shots do pummel in. Bone Giant going a little bit high here. And the Rangers, to be honest, aren't the worst target for the High Elves, at least, if the Casket does continue to shoot them, as they are a relatively skirmish formation, not kind of being very regimented and neck to neck like most High Elf troops. And they are darting forward, closing the gap very quickly here. But now it looks like the Casket has switched to the archers, which is going to be one of their main priority targets. Bone Giant once again missing here as the Silver Helms do dart and weave between the trees, trying to close the distance without taking too much damage. And a counter charge from the Skeleton Warriors is going in, but the Rangers are certainly going to carve up these skeletons with deadly efficiency here. You can already see the health drop here as these deadly dual wooden swords infantry do get to work. With some Skeleton Warriors, however, wrapping around the flank, can either pressure the archer back line or come in for a lovely rear attack on the Rangers. However, the front line is starting to break down already. Silver Helm's going in for a lovely counter charge for luring out one unit of Nekakar Horsemen, but it's a trap, as it looks like the Necropolis Knights are now going to swarm in as well. Get a lovely flank attack on the Silver Helms if they do push through, and it looks like they do, so overall not the worst engagement here, considering that the Liber Mortis has gone down as well. More cycle charging in the front line from the Silver Helms pummels into the Skeleton Warriors, forcing them to crumble, but Nekakar Horsemen are here in response as well. But along the front line, you can see the High Elves doing pretty decent at the moment. Phoenix Guard obviously going to be able to tear down the far inferior Skeleton Warriors, as the archers start to focus down the Eyes of the Desert. Now, these guys are actually pretty hard to shoot overall. Let's see if they actually have any missile resistance. They do. 25% is pretty infuriating, but they are going to be falling back here to help protect the Casket of Souls, as well as kind of protect themselves from this missile barrage. A big fat breath attack is coming in, going down the line, getting pretty decent contact on the Horsemen and Skeleton Warriors, but at the same time, they're pretty cheap and cheerful troops, and it's not going to be the best value, but still, 33 kills for the Prince is doing pretty good work, as the Bone Giant once again misses his shot here, going after the Prince, unless he was focusing down those Silver Helms, but they're already shattered, so it seems pretty unlikely. Elves are now swarming forward, but we do have a unit of Ushopti who have been summoned here in the back lines. At least I think they've been summoned. Unbinding. Yes, they have been summoned. Okay, thank God. They didn't seem to have the glow around them here. Thought I'd somehow missed a unit of Ushopti. Doing a decent job carving up archers who really need to fall back here, as these Silver Helms do jump in, try to hold these guys in place and allow the archers to escape. Phoenix Guard have been a fatal unit, which is a fantastic way to get rid of them, considering they're going to be an absolute pain here for the remaining Tomb Kings, as the battle does seem to be swinging in the Hell's favour. The Prince does finally land for the first time in the battle, and that is one of the problems I do find with the big dragons sometimes, is it's kind of hard to find a home for them. They're very expensive, so you need to get them into the battle to make them, have a good enough impact to justify the large fee. Huge barrage just came in on these archers, doing some massive damage, and the Ushopti are finally going down, but the archers did not move, so it looks like they're actually going to be perhaps pushed off here. Depends, Ushopti are very close now to disappearing into the realm of shadows once more. Prince doing a pretty decent job here, trying to focus down the Bone Giant where possible, but it looks like the Eyes of the Desert have now finally got into range, and their long-range missiles do indeed have that bonus versus large, and they're doing pretty decent work onto the Prince overall. You can see his health absolutely chugging down here, as volley after volley goes into the rear, and he really needs a regrowth kind of now, as he is completely surrounded by the Knights as well as the Bone Giant, and it looks like a well-timed net of Amantot from the Light Leech Priest has come in here and is pinning this poor dragon in place. Have an upgraded regrowth, should top him up quite nicely if he manages to escape, and he's still done some pretty decent damage as well onto the Bone Giant there. Rangers desperately pushing forward in order to assist, but they're not going to be the best units for dealing with Knights as well as the Bone Giant. Looks like King Nakesh's Scorpion Legion, regiment around Skeleton Spearmen, are going to be pushing forward as well, but the Prince should escape here, and he is now looking rather healthy, back up to 3,200 health. But while he is off the field, it's going to allow the Tomb Kings an attempted comeback here. The Bone Giant is getting very close there to actually starting to crumble. Looks like he's just about hanging on. I think the archers really want to focus fire this guy down and focus fire the snakes. Ignore the Skeleton Warriors. You can kind of clear those guys up in the late game. However, Archon the Black is also very, very healthy here, but is very wisely staying quite close to the Eyes of the Desert, just in case that pesky dragon does indeed come in. Looks like we're coming up for a big fat breath attack, but it was a big stun coming in there. The Prince actually getting staggered twice, not allowing him to get his breath attacks off. And looks like he's actually just kind of standing there. Stand your ground has been popped. But he is back down to under or just above 2,000 health. These Eyes of the Desert have been a massive pain for the dragon, but he sees an opportunity. Archon is overextended from his forces here. There is no protection for him, and it looks like he could get munched, but Red Legion here, or Mini Boris, does decide to fall back and get back up into the air just in case. Archon is a okay melee combatant as well. Looks like the Knights are starting to be focus fired down, which isn't the worst idea here. If the archers can pull apart the Eyes of the Desert, perhaps that will allow the Prince to land a little better. He does have a Spirit Leech on him, but a lovely counter regrowth has been popped here as well. Should heal him up to pretty much his healing cap, as this balance of power is somehow in favour of the Tomb Kings, probably due to the health cap on both the characters right now. But once again, the dragon flies too close to the Eyes of the Desert, who do huge damage, but they are crumbling here. It looks like they are going to dissipate themselves. Dragon kind of does a weird float down in the sky, before once again coming in to go after the Bone Giant, perhaps this time with a breath attack. He's managed to situate him lovely over the top of the Bone Giant, going all the way down, doing some massive damage. That Bone Giant is certainly in trouble. Casket of Souls is on its own at this point. Perhaps if some Silver Helms could wrap around and hop on top of this, it'd be pretty good value. It is now out of ammunition, but it got 169 kills, which is pretty crazy stuff. Looks like The knights are going down here as archers are forced into combat, and this could be a big problem. The High Elves are certainly in a decent position. If these archers had ammunition, they'd be able to slowly bog down the enemy with cycle charge and prince, and all these kind of beat up rangers just mosh pit the enemy down. But with the archers running out of ammunition, they're really going to struggle here to bring down Archon, because every time the prince does land in to try and pick off some of these key targets, King Lakesh's Scorpion Legion are there to protect their king, and doing a very decent job of it as well. Still rocking over 98, or exactly 98 troops in that unit. Makes them pretty healthy in the late game. Last batch of Phoenix Guard going for a desperate charge, doing pretty decent work, as an Earthblood does come in to try and heal up all of these High Elf troops, but they keep breaking here, and they are being terrified by that mighty Bone Giant. It looks like the High Elves really need to get it off the field as quickly as possible to try and allow the rest of their troops to rally. But the Prince goes in relatively unsupported here, but he doesn't have too many options, unfortunately. Trying to get some cycle charge damage off on the Bone Giant, and it's going relatively successful. But of course, every time the Prince does come in and land, he's of course taken more and more damage and doesn't really have much room left to heal. Archers darting into combat as well, but a nice summon of Skeleton Warriors should be able to clear those guys up and bog them down, as once again the dragon loops through the sky and is going to come in possibly for a breath attack here, it looks like, and it is the final breath attack coming down on that Bone Giant, bringing it down to below 1,000 health, and this certainly looks like it is the end for the mighty construct, although it's done some pretty decent work overall and taken a ton of damage, which otherwise could have gone on Archon the Black and perhaps managed to assassinate the enemy character. But down goes the Giant, which means no more terror here for the Tomb Kings, as the last batch of Rangers do start to push forwards. But it looks like Phoenix Guard and Silver Helms have shattered here. Casket of Souls just chilling in the distance, perhaps is going to push up into glorious combat. However, the Prince could also just float over here, take out this Casket and try and push the balance of power back to the centre pocket. It looks like the Prince is going to, very wisely, I think, focus on this centre mass. It looks like the Nakesh's Scorpion Legion is about to go down, but a clutch Spirit Leech in the end game here has gone down on this Prince, who's been absolutely carrying the High Elves in the late game, and Archon is nipping in at his heels. I think the Prince has to turn and fight this. He's taking a lot of unnecessary damage here. He's trying to get back up into the air and perhaps cycle charge down Archon, who is now isolated, but the Prince is wavering, taking one too many big hits in, and with the Prince gone, it looks like the High Elf forces are considering routing quite heavily. We have some archers wavering in here as well, as the Casket of Souls very slowly floats towards the main engagement. This thing has some really janky attack animations. It's kind of funny. But it's looking pretty bleak here. The Prince can perhaps rally if it can get enough distance away from Archon the Black, but I believe he's used all his breath attacks up, but just being alive may keep the High Elf forces fighting, and they've pretty much got it down to just 3 models left. The Casket of Souls, Leech Priest, and Archon, as it looks like King Nakesh's Scorpion Legion is pretty much spent here, as they are kind of crumbling to dust. But the archers have given up hope at the sight of their Prince fleeing from the battlefield, and with the archers running, they've lost a lot of the mass here, the High Elves, and I don't think the Mage of Life, with kind of beat up, beleaguered High Elf troops, are realistically going to be able to carry here, as the balance of power pushes further and further into the Tomb King's favour. Looks like the Prince has completely shattered now, and with that, it's pretty much going to be game here. So just fast forward, as it looks like the Casket is going to do its rather janky kind of swirls and DJ beats as it tries to force back the archers, but as soon as Archon gets back here, it's pretty much going to be game over. There's no one left in the High Elf force to actually kind of deal with him. And very, very close game overall, down to just the 3 models, and a very Pyrrhic victory indeed. And well played to Griff, as well as Mini Boris, aka Red Legion, who is a content creator here on YouTube and does have a YouTube channel. So definitely, if you enjoy his performance today, go check out his stuff. So, really cool builds overall. I don't play Tomb Kings massively myself, so it's a bit hard to do a little bit of analysis for them. However, the Casket of Souls was a brilliant pick. 174 kills, and even getting in there and doing the dirty in combat late game. And the Eyes of the Desert may have only got 4 kills, but they are actually going to be my MVP of the battle, doing ridiculous damage to that Prince, really pitting the hurt down on him and forcing him away from the main engagements a lot of the time, as well as forcing him to use all his regrowths rather early. However, honestly, Mini Boris's build, I'm quite a big fan of as well. Mixing in Phoenix Guard as well, I'm quite a big fan of, whereas everywhere else he went relatively cheap. The Dragon, I already kind of spoke about its problem of not really having a home to land in. You always have the constant threat of Eyes of the Desert and Sneaky Snakes there to kind of punish him, but if he stays in the air, he's simply going to get shot by the Bone Giant. However, he nearly carried at the end there some glorious cycle charging. I think if Griff the Marrowmeister had run out of magic and didn't get that last Spirit Leech off, perhaps the Prince could have carried. Anyway guys, I hope you did enjoy. If you did, feel free to like the video and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. And if you want to see your replays on the channel, get involved in the tournament scene, and just talk to a load of cool guys, feel free to join my Discord. There is a link in the description down below, as well as another couple of links if you want to support the channel in any other way. And also, we now have access to memberships for the channel, so if you'd like to become a duck guard, a king duck, or a god duck, I believe were the tier lists I made, feel free to press that join button for more information. Anyway guys, until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.